So, we have the new Megadeth album called Dystopia, which was released today, this morning. I've been listening to it ever since. And after a few good years of Megadeth giving us mediocre records, I think the last good album they gave us was 2009, The End Game. A very great, stellar record with great musicianship, great songwriting. And then we had a couple of records, 13 from 2011, which was quite mediocre for me, rehashing songs from the past, bringing not much to the table. And then we had Super Collider from 2013, which was even worse than the previous album. But now we have Megadeth again with a new chance, new opportunity to redeem themselves. So I think people were quite optimistic about this album because we heard some of the songs in the past few weeks, some of the singles, and they sounded quite promising. Now that I've listened to the album quite a few times, I can tell you that the album is really good. Now it's very hard to rate this album for one very good reason. There's two ways that you can come from if you want. One is that are you comparing this album to the previous body of works? Are you comparing this album to Super Collider and 13? If that is the case, then this album is one of the best things they've done. Now, there will always be people that compare this album and anything they release to the classic era, and they still have hopes for Megadeth to release something as good, if not better, than Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction and all those great albums. But sadly, if you're coming from that perspective, this is not the case. Megadeth have released what they are capable to do, and this is the best Megadeth we can have in 2016. I think they've thrown everything out of the window. They've gone all guns blazing on this record. You know, the musicianship sounds great, the songwriting, the production sounds really good. We have two stellar players from Kiko Loureiro, Chris Adler, who really add an element of freshness to the new album. And that was much needed for a long time. I think the other guys, the previous guys, were tired maybe of playing in the band, and as a result, the songwriting became quite lackluster in the process of making new albums. That's not the case here. Luckily, we have a very strong record. I can't imagine what the reaction of fans would have been had this record been really bad, you know, with the new guys, with new Megadeth blood. But yeah, I'm quite glad that this album turned out the way it did. It is very solid. It's not perfect by any means. It has some flaws that we're gonna talk about now. The first one being, this is quite inevitable actually, that is Dave Mustaine's voice. This is something that, in my humble opinion, is getting worse. Dave Mustaine has lost his range, his voice, you know, that tonality he had in the past. He's lost that a long time ago. But you can tell, you know, the gradual decrease of the quality of his voice with each release. And this is something quite sad, because even though he was never an amazing singer, you know, he still had that snarl, that trademark sound on his voice, which, you know, in some parts of the album he still has, but every time it becomes, you know, less and less frequent. And the other thing that was a bit disappointing was the fact that the other two guys from the Rust in Peace lineup didn't make it to this album. I don't know whether those were rumors or their reunion was going to happen, and it never really materialized. In any way, it didn't happen. On the other hand, we have amazing players on Megadeth, and This album is good, guys. You know, I'm sounding a bit redundant here, but I really want you to listen to it because it deserves to be listened. Megadeth have finally redeemed themselves. This is nowhere near Rust in Peace number 2. It doesn't need to be, but it is a very good album. You know, I wouldn't give it 100% out of 10 out of 10. Sorry, I would give it maybe 8.5 out of 10. It is quite good. Nothing spectacular, nothing groundbreaking, but there are quite a few songs that I like, and they are the standout tracks for me. And those are Death from Within. I really like that instrumental part, something, you know, that we haven't really heard from Megadeth, you know, if you know what I mean. Listen to that song, listen to the instrumental part, and tell me what you think. Bullet to the Brain is another great song for me. I felt it was a bit more experimental. Maybe this is the new beginning for Megadeth. Maybe they will carry on doing something more experimental in the future, because at times this can sound a bit redundant, you know, like stuff that we've listened to in the past. But there's nothing wrong with that if it's done in the right way. And then we have Poisonous Shadows, which is another great track. You know, I think this deals with Dave Mustaine's personal issues. And yeah, I mean, one thing that I wanted to mention was that this song called Fatal Illusion, the verse sounds quite reminiscent to America's Stand from United Abominations. I don't know whether this was intentional or not, but this is something that I found quite curious and quite funny in a way. So yeah, guys, this was my review for the new Megadeth album Dystopia. Go and check it out, because, you know, it is really good. The voice might be becoming quite unlistenable. This is nowhere near Rust in Peace number 2. You know, the classic lineup didn't reunite, but still, this album is really solid and deserves to be listened to. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next review.